talks about, and in this episode, Jason talks about AEW, the week in AEW, starting with AEW Dynamite on Christmas Day and leading right on through to the last episode of Rampage and the big World's End pay-per-view on the 28th. Before we get started, the music you hear, Reality 508, wherever you get music, look them up, support them, support local talent, I'm trying to say. And please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on social media at Jason Talks About and just about everywhere you go on social media. Okay, so there's a lot to cover here, so everything's not going to be blow for blow, but I did want to cover the important stuff. Let's start with Dynamite on Christmas Day. Continental Classic matches. Ospreay versus Brody King. I put that the crowd was very hot for this. They're still at the Hammerstein Ballroom at this point, where they recorded this episode. I'm pretty sure I don't think this was a live episode. It was on Christmas Day, and I don't think they would have went back to Hammerstein Ballroom. So I'm pretty sure they did this all in one shot. Yeah, so I did put that the crowd was super hot. They were doing the ole ole, Ospreay thing. I thought this was a great display of Brody King's power. I'm a huge fan, I keep saying it, of Brody King and the House of Black. I wish AEW would do more with them. They're going to Australia. Buddy Murphy's from there, so they have a chance to do something with him. Anyway, don't want to go onto a tangent. I just have to say that every time. I don't understand why guys that look like and can wrestle like the House of Black aren't bigger players in AEW. Lots of AEW chants in this match. That's always a good sign. Like I said, the best thing that they did was get to these smaller venues, and just the energy is just really, really great right now in these last few AEW shows. I liked where in this match, when they did the exchanges, the forearms, the chops, Brody just kept winning them. It would be like, Ospreay, boom, boom, Brody, boom, and then he would just drop Ospreay, whether it was chops, forearms, punches. There was a lot of that. I liked it. I thought it was really impressive that Ospreay was able to get Brody in the Styles Clash. He did end up hitting the Hidden Blade, and there was a kick out. And that got a huge gasp from the crowd. Ospreay eventually did win, and that was the result I think had to happen. I'm a big Brody King fan, but Ospreay was on back-to-back losses. My only thing is I really like the Continental Classic. The one tweak I would make to it is have it just be a traditional tournament. Start it off with 32 men or whatever you got to do, or 16. This way you can finagle the matches in a way that if someone's going to lose, they lose that once and they're out. But where everybody has to fight everybody, and then it's like, I don't care that the Beast Mortos had all losses, but just the fact that people like Mark Briscoe, for example, last year had none. This year had 2. And then Garcia, who's a champion, has to lose twice. And Okada, who's a champion, had a draw and then a tie. And I just think you're weakening your belts when you do that. I don't know. I just think a traditional tournament, you can write it in a way, and if you have to have the Beast Mortises of the world in there, fine, they can be first-round losses to people. And if someone loses on a fluke and gets eliminated, oh well, at least they don't have to go out there and take 2 or 3 more. I'm not going to pretend I'm smart enough to figure all this out, but there's got to be a better way than just having people just lose multiple matches, especially important people. Like Garcia just got a title, all right? I'm not some big Danny Garcia mark, trust me. But he just got a title, okay? He's supposed to be a champion. He's supposed to be important. He has a draw and 2 losses in this tournament. I mean, that looks terrible to me if that's the first couple of weeks of your championship reign. I know the title wasn't on the line, but he's got 2 losses. He's a brand new champion, so not good. So then we had... so that's my little rant on the Continental Classic. I like it, and I've been putting it over the last few weeks saying... it's a good string going through the shows, and it's keeping me interested. I just think that maybe we should write it in a different way. You got a big roster. I think you can do a traditional tournament next year. That would be my suggestion and my change. So then we go to the back. Renee is with the Hurt Syndicate, and they are banned from the building. Christopher Daniels is there with security, and he's saying they're not coming in because they wrecked everybody and all the security and officials last week. And for Shelton Benjamin's match, He wants it to just be one-on-one, and he's kicking them out of the building. And MVP was kind of funny because he said, Renee, out of respect for you, we're going to be peaceful and walk out. So just kind of keeping that element of danger with the Hurt Syndicate still being really dangerous and important. Okay, so then we have Darby versus Ricochet. This was another Continental Classic match. There was lots of toilet paper getting flung around again at Ricochet. Ricochet early on, cheap shot in the corner to Darby Allin. So again, just being very heelish. Ricochet, so this is another problem I constantly talk about with AEW. They go to the outside of the ring. These Continental Classic matches are not no count out or no DQ. But he had enough time to neatly set up a table and take his time and then go to the top rope and do a 630 senton splash. It was an impressive spot, but if you're going to do this, do it off of a referee bump or something. Explain it somehow that the referee can't get to 10 when somebody has 5 minutes to set all this up. The doctor was checking on Darby. This bothers me a little bit about AEW. They do this spot a lot. I mean, I thought it was done to death with Bryan Danielson too, where it's a guy's on the outside and he clearly looks like he's dead, and it takes several minutes and the doctor's checking on him. I mean, at that point, don't they just call off the match? Just wave it off? And like I said, if you want to do it once for a dramatic thing and a title match where the guy begs the doctor not to stop it, okay, but when it happens often, as many things in AEW, it doesn't mean as much. So let's just slow down on that spot, please. So the doctor's checking on Darby, like I said. Ricochet goes out there. He starts ripping the bandages off of Darby's ribs. I forgot to mention Darby came in with taped up ribs because he's all screwed up from getting jumped by and knocked down the stairs by the Moxley's gang there, the Death Riders. And I don't know, he probably crashed a car through his house or something this weekend as well. So they had the 2-minute warning in the match. They had the 1-minute warning. And as they were at the 1-minute warning, Darby started coming back. He hits the coffin drop and gets on top of Ricochet just in time for the bell to ring. So I thought that was a good little touch. It was a little realistic. Time's running out. The babyface is making the big rush. He's trying to... So even though draws are sometimes flat in wrestling, I thought this one was done well because it built to this really good crescendo where Darby Allin almost had it, but just couldn't get it in time. And it was a draw, but Ricochet advances on the draw, and they made a point to announce that very loudly in that hostile crowd that hates Ricochet. So the Ricochet heel turn, if he wanted to be hated, that's a success so far. Continental Classic, another match. Commander, who was the new ROH TV champion, versus Claudio Castagnoli. Darby on his way out now he's leaving from his match. Commander and Alex Abrahantes are coming down to the ring, and he whispers something to both of them. Okay, what's that all about? Well, you found out because Commander is in the match with Claudio. He gets knocked out of the ring. The ref is trying to keep Claudio back from going outside the ring to attack him. While he's doing that, he reaches under the ring, pulls out Darby's pink coat, and Darby still has the brass knuckles Claudio used to knock him out the week earlier. So Commander ends up using the brass knuckles on Claudio without the ref seeing it. Real good babyface move there. And he does his big walking across the ropes splash and ends up, I think it's a shooting star press off the rope. He walks across the ropes and does that. He ends up winning. I said, whoa. Alex Abrahantes, for some reason, was dressed like Wolverine, I noticed. I don't know if he was going to go trick-or-treating after the match. And then the Death Riders all swarm and attack Commander for cheating. I noted that Marina Shafir took down Commander like a bitch. So, again, they're still doing the thing where Marina Shafir can just beat up all the men. So I guess she's going to be the most dominant women's champion in history once she starts fighting women again. Jay White and Orange Cassidy come out to save Commander. But then Moxley came out from the crowd. He wasn't with the original. I should have mentioned that when the Death Riders came out, there was no Moxley. He came out after the fact, took out the baby faces with the briefcase. And then Hangman came out. And again, Hangman's getting this gigantic pop. Now that he's the dastardly heel. I always joke about the AEW fans being bloodthirsty. It was like they really started to love Swerve when he was like threatening babies, and now they love Hangman since he, just became really badass and started burning down people's childhood homes and stuff like that. He ended up hitting the buckshot lariat on Mox, and then the three baby faces all kind of stared down at the briefcase because they all want the belt. Okay, another Continental Classic match. This was really good, I thought. Okada and Shelton Benjamin. They adhered to the code of honor and shook hands beforehand. They talked about the history that these guys have faced each other before. They were both in Japan. They've both been through Ring of Honor. There was a "We Hurt People" chant and the Okada chants going back and forth. I do have some minor complaints. Okada did hit a DDT on the floor and then rolled Shelton Benjamin and didn't go for the pin. Okada's still doing this weird thing when he goes, I don't know if it's a rib at this point or if it's like a joke, but he goes to do this elbow drop and he motions for somebody to get out of the way, like as if the ref or someone's in the way, but no one's there. And he does this all the time. And Taz actually said, well, nobody's there, Okada. I noted that the crowd was super hot for this match. I think this is two guys that have a lot of respect from the crowd, especially the AEW crowd. It was a good back and forth match. I'm not going to go blow for blow. There was a lot here, and I have a lot to cover. But Okada ended up winning with the Rainmaker, but it didn't make Shelton look bad. I mean, this was a really close back and forth, good match. If you have time, if you haven't watched it, I would suggest watching it. It was one of the better matches in a while, especially for Okada. Shelton has just been great in his whole AEW run. I mean, I don't agree with all of the booking and the wins and the losses and everything I stated earlier about the Continental Classic. He's a good example of that because he's fairly new, and I don't like him taking these losses. But I will say that it gave us this match, and this was good. And Okada actually did respect the code of honor after the match. So it's, even though they're both technically heels, I think they wanted to make a statement that people respect Shelton Benjamin. Okay, so Renee was in the back with Swerve. Big time Who's House chants. Talks about how he had a great 2024. Ricochet interrupts. Says he's going to win the Continental Classic like Swerve couldn't. And Swerve just tells him, you know what? I hope you do, but if you lose, I'm going to be there to embarrass you big. So he planted that seed. Jericho did a New York promo again. Nobody cares. He's going to fight Anthony Bowens on Rampage, whatever. Tony Storm versus Taya Valkyrie. Again, Taya Valkyrie and Diana Peraza, they look great. Taya Valkyrie's in like the shape of her life. I hope they start to feature them more. I don't have a lot to say about this match, though. It was good. I thought, well, both women can wrestle, but it was short, and Tony won with a 21 wind. Did I just make up a word? Wind? She won with a small package. So yeah, decent match. Don't have a lot to say, but it was okay. And Tony Storm is still doing the thing where her memory, I guess, only works from coming to AEW right now. Renee was in the back with Hangman, and Christopher Daniels interrupts and says, hey, I was wrong to question you. You're right. I don't know what you've been through with Swerve and everything that you've gone through in the last year. I just want to know if you need anything. I'm still your friend. You don't have to stand alone, blah, blah, blah. So more friendship stuff out of AEW. There's a lot of stuff about people being friends and not being friends and whatever, but it's okay. I will say this much. The Hangman character is much more interesting right now, so I'll take it. Because I think Hangman Page is one of the few guys that can still be a star in AEW if they could book him right. So this is better than he was 6 months ago or whatever, so I'll take it. Another Continental Classic match was Garcia versus Fletcher. I noted that the stupid dance is back. I thought Danny Garcia the whole point was he was going to be more serious. He's still doing the dumb dance. The champion came out first. That's a little old-fashioned thing about me. I just really think the champion should always come out last. Even though it's a tournament match, Danny Garcia is a champion. He should be held in higher regard, which is, again, another one of my problems with this format. And then I said to myself, okay, maybe he just does the dumb dance on the stage real quick. Nope, he did it again during the match. There's a lot of F.U. Fletcher chants. So, and F.U. and F. Don Callis, he wasn't even there. And there was F. Don Callis chants. So they've got some good heat. again, Fletcher has a lot of promise. I hope they can keep the momentum with him. I did note that the apron power bombs, man, they're just so dangerous, and I know people are gonna think I just pick on AEW, but they just seem so much more dangerous on AEW. It seems like there's so much less regard when they do them. WWE has seldom done them. It's usually Kevin Owens who's done it, and it just seems much safer when he does it. If there is a safe way to do this, but yeah. So Fletcher powerbombed Garcia on the apron, and man, it looked rough. And then later on, he gave him a brainbuster on the apron and the last ride powerbomb, and Garcia still kicked out. And eventually, the end of the match was there was kind of a ref bump, and he didn't see a low blow from Fletcher, and then he did the brainbuster on the corner turnbuckle, and that looked really rough the way that Garcia fell, because you can't really plan how you're gonna land when you're going head first upside down into the top turnbuckle. But I wrote that Fletcher was kind of dominant here towards the end. It was a hard hitting match, but the last third of the match was just, I felt Fletcher was really dominant and he won. And I don't disagree with Fletcher winning, but again, I don't think a TNT champion should be in this position. So whatever the case, Fletcher wins. And then it was announced that Fletcher would advance and he's going to face Will Ospreay. So we're getting Ospreay Fletcher too at the pay-per-view. And we're getting Ricochet Okada. So in my estimation, 2 good semi-final wrestling matches right there. Ospreay comes out. Him and Fletcher have a face-to-face. And I thought that would have been a good way to end the show, but instead they go backstage to Moxley and he's doing a promo on the stairs about how nobody wants it like he does. And I don't know. I don't know what Moxley means half the time with this new character of his. But that's how they went off the air. Okay, so a little bit about Rampage just because it was the final episode. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. Jericho fought Anthony Bowens. He came out with Sinatra doing the King of Sinatra music. He didn't come out with Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra is not with us anymore, unfortunately. But he did come out to Frank Sinatra music talking about being the King of New York. I wrote that there was a very awkward rap when the Acclaimed came out, and they're still teasing the whole dissension, which I don't know how this is supposed to make sense. It's just bad storytelling again. I guess I'm supposed to go on Twitter or something to figure it out. But anyway, this match, I'm not going to really cover it. It was just, they just furthered the thing with Caster. Caster ended up hitting Bowens accidentally with the ROH belt after Bill distracted the referee, and then Brian Keith brought in the belt and he was going to hit Bowens with it, and then him and Caster got into a tug of war, and when Caster pulled the belt, he hit Bowens accidentally. Jericho won, so they're pushing that whole thing. Private Party had a win on this as well against some local talent, and then there was a brawl with Leo Rush, Action Andretti, and Top Flight, and all 3 teams. Hobbs did a backstage promo about Takeshita and Callis. Thunder Rosa beat Layla Gray. Layla Gray looks incredible, by the way. I don't know why we don't see more of her on our TV. Hook versus Nick Wayne. Hook was really over with the New York crowd. He was selling his hand that was in the cast, but he ended up winning with the red rum. The Death Riders beat up Darby Allin and threw him down the stairs. But they made a point to horse collar him with a chair and stomp his neck first. So Darby Allin may be dead, folks. I'm not sure, but that was pretty brutal. Then there was a Mox in-ring promo, and all kind of people came out. Commander, Top Flight, Orange Cassidy, Willow Nightingale, Hangman, Jay White. The whole locker room ended up trying to break the whole thing up. There was AEW chants. So the crowd was really hot for this. And Christian was watching up in the suite, and security was out there trying to break everything up, and it was chaos. And it was kind of reminiscent of an old episode of ECW in that very arena. And Pac ended up smashing the switchboard that controls the lights, and the lights went out, and there was AEW chants, even though the guys fought in the dark. And then we got Mox in the production truck threatening everybody and basically saying, I'm going to end Rampage. And that's how they decided to end the final episode of Rampage. So Moxley destroyed a TV show to the point where it's canceled forever. There's probably a joke in there somewhere. But anyway, all right, just wanted to cover that quickly, just because it was the final episode of Rampage. All right, so let's get ready now because World's End, I'm going to cover this. It was lengthy, but I'm going to try to get through it as quick and painless as I can. Before I do, if you're listening, I would really appreciate if you could give us a like and subscribe. Okay, so let's get into it. AEW World's End on December 28th. So we opened the show with a Continental Classic match, Ospreay versus Fletcher. I thought this was a good way to open the show. The crowd was super hot for this. They had a good crowd. I don't know if it was a sellout. It looked like it from the way they shot the crowd. I wrote that Ospreay was super over. I did have a complaint I usually have about AEW, that they were outside forever. I'm not going to cover the whole thing, like I said, blow for blow. I'm just going to go over the main points of these matches. This was a lengthy pay-per-view, and I did not watch 0 Hour, so sorry if you wanted to hear about that. So Fletcher ended up getting a distraction, and he gave Ospreay his own hidden blade move. That got a big "F you Fletcher" a chant from the crowd. There was some stuff I really didn't like in this. At one point, so Ospreay got busted wide open. He bled all over the place. There was and Fletcher was wearing white. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but there was blood all over Fletcher. At one point, Fletcher took his hand and wiped blood off of his own boot and licked it. And he was licking his own fist when he punched Ospreay. Then they were headbutting each other, and Ospreay's blood was all over Fletcher. I don't know what the thing is. I don't know who this is for. There was this tweet where, and I'm not going to be one to take up for Disco Inferno, trust me, but he had tweeted out after the whole syringe spot with Hangman and Swerve, like, who is this for? And Brody King, who, if you listen to the show, you know I'm a fan of, but I guess it was supposed to be this big own of Disco Inferno when he said, "For the sickos, bitch." Well, I got to tell you, I don't know who the sickos are, but their numbers are dwindling. And I'm rooting for AEW, and they have a good feel. They're back in these smaller arenas. This was a decent pay-per-view. They seem to have a little more momentum than usual, than lately. But, I mean, you got to appeal to more than just this niche of a niche. And if they don't do that, I mean, they're lucky they got that TV deal. I'm glad they did. But I don't know if there's going to be another one. If you've got to appeal to more people than this. And as I continue this review, you'll see what I mean. So, Ospreay won with the Styles Clash in the end. Right move. Fletcher's on the rise right now. This doesn't hurt him too much. He's only lost like twice in the last few months, so good for them. And Ospreay in the final. I think that's the right move. Then we went to the other Continental Classic semifinal, Okada versus Ricochet. I wrote that Okada was super over in this match. Good back and forth match. I don't really have any complaints about it. There wasn't too much of the stupid shit of being outside the ring too much and all that. It was mostly just a good wrestling match. And I give both guys props, and Okada won with the Rainmaker. Again, right move there, and sets up Okada and Ospreay later, which is definitely, out of these four guys in a possible match you could put in the final, that's probably the best one you could do. Then Swerve came out after Okada won and left, and he is super over with the Swerve, whose house, Swerve's house, and he reiterates what he told Ricochet on Dynamite. You said you would win, and you didn't, and I said I was going to embarrass you big, and you ran your mouth. So now you ran your mouth, so now we need to clean up the mess. So Nana went around the ring with a big wagon of toilet paper, gave toilet paper to all the crowd, and they all threw toilet paper all over Ricochet and booed the shit out of him. And Swerve said, "Happy New Year, Trevor," and left Ricochet seating in the ring. So they're setting up Ricochet and Swerve. Okay. Renee's in the back with Ospreay. He's asking Orlando to carry him through, and Okada's his mentor and like a big brother to him, and he knows he's facing the greatest tournament wrestler of all time, and he said he's like 1 in 10 against Okada or something crazy like that. So and he did not wash the blood off his face because, of course, he didn't, because this is AEW, and so he's going to stay covered in blood until later on. So then we go to Thunder May versus Thunder Rosa street fight. Rosa's dad was at ringside. I'm not going to go really blow for blow on this again. It was just one of these like garbage no DQ matches. It wasn't really good. I'm not saying either woman can't wrestle. They both can, and they're both good wrestlers. I just wish they were having a normal match. At one point, the thumbtacks came out because, of course, they had to. And Thunder Rosa, I think she got covered in those thumbtacks more than I've ever seen anyone, and she was visibly really in pain. She could barely keep her shoulders down for the pin, for the kick out at 2 when May covered her. She was, I don't think I've ever seen somebody that covered in thumbtacks. Not that it's a good thing, it's just an observation. At one point, May took Rosa's dad's cane in a very heelish move, and then Thunder Rosa ended up beating her with it. In the end, Thunder Rosa brought dirt from the graveyards of Tijuana. A lot of good it did her because May threw it in her eyes. Kind of reminds me of when The Undertaker brought his own urn and Hulk Hogan threw the dirt from the urn in his eyes in Tuesday in Texas. So, maybe people should stop bringing dirt to the ring because it always backfires. Anyway, Mariah May won with a rough-looking pile driver through a table on the outside of the ring. So hopefully Thunder Rosa is not going to be on the show for a long time again. Because, that looked hard. Okay, so MJF versus Adam Cole. I was talking to my friend the other day, and I told him I will Venmo you $5 right now if you can explain this to me, especially the part why Kyle O'Reilly's mad at everybody, and he couldn't collect the $5. And guess what? If he told me that, I would have lost $5 too. So anyway, MJF and Adam Cole, the match that nobody's really asking for, but I guess they kind of had to wrap things up. So Taven and Bennett are shown at ringside, and they're kind of guarding the diamond ring, right? And I know what you're thinking, right? I was thinking it too. Ooh, this is going to be when they turn on Adam Cole. That's the only logical thing that could happen, right? In this awful, awful, terrible storyline, right? Where the baby faces outnumber the heel, and somehow the heel is supposed to be the heel, even though he got screwed by the baby faces. And this thing is so bad, I don't even have the words how awful this is. And Adam Cole doesn't look good, and I'm gonna get to covering the match. I just hope MJF gets as far away from all of this as possible after this. Anyway, so Adam Cole blades almost right away in the match. Like, the match goes to the outside, and now he's bleeding. So basically, Will Ospreay, if you want to tell that story where Will Ospreay lost a bunch of blood and has to wrestle twice, good, okay, I can get behind that, I guess. But what does it mean when Adam Cole blades almost right away, like one match later? The announcers were trying everything to explain, to say how awful MJF is, and he's so despicable, and Adam Cole had to do what he did, and they're trying so hard to force the square peg into the round hole, and just make this story fit and work somehow, that Adam Cole was somehow the good guy, even though we all saw what we saw. You can't talk us into unseeing something we saw. This is so bad. MJF goes into the post on the outside. Now he's bleeding. So again, Ospreay's blood means less and less as we go on. MJF did. He did a spot on the stairs. So at one point, Adam Cole, the referee, was tied up with Adam Cole for some reason. MJF was on the outside. He slapped his hand against the stairs and fell to the ground and pointed at Taven and Bennett like they just slammed him to the stairs. So the referee fell for it. So he did an Eddie Guerrero. It actually got Eddie chance, and the ref kicked Taven and Bennett out. Eventually, the ref went down again. MJF got the diamond ring out of his got it from the outside of the ring. Comes in the ring, goes to use it, gets super kicked by Adam Cole. Adam Cole takes it, holds up his fist. Absolute silence from the crowd. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to see him win this. I think they're in big trouble with Adam Cole. I think his entrance is over, and that's about it at this point. MJF MJF ended up hitting a low blow without the ref seeing it, and the Heat Seeker, and he ended up winning the match. Thankfully and mercifully, the match was over. MJF gets a chair. He wants to break Adam Cole's leg. Roderick Strong comes and saves him. O'Reilly comes out, and everything was kind of slow and awkward. And I was waiting for, okay, here's the heel turn. This is the only thing that could possibly make sense, right? Like, there's no way you're going to have the baby faces outnumber who's supposed to be the heel and all this, right? There's no way you're going to do that, right? Nope, I'm wrong. That's exactly what they did. Nobody turned heel. What happened was, O'Reilly threw MJF into the ring. O'Reilly and Roddy did the high-low to MJF. Taven and Bennett came back in, and all the baby faces took turns beating up MJF. The crowd booed. All the faces hugged. Nobody cared. And Excalibur tried to sell us on the fact that Adam Cole was the real winner in this situation. This was so... I never thought I'd be saying... This was like Jericho and MJF singing bad. That's how bad this is. I was about to say it's the worst thing he's ever been involved in. This actually might be worse than the singing. Please, for the love of God, go somewhere else with MJF. Get him back in the title picture and get him away from all this. This was awful. This whole thing has been awful since Adam Cole came back. All of it. Terrible, terrible, terrible. All right, I guess I got that point across. AEW International Championship, Hobbs versus Takeshita. Callis again goes to commentary. I don't understand this. He's a manager. He doesn't stay at ringside and manage his guys. He just goes straight to commentary every time. I remember like Bobby Heenan would go on commentary sometimes in between, but like maybe if his guy was like wrestling a job guy or something, but like a jobber. I don't remember him and like when his guy was fighting like real competition, like just going to commentary. So not to say Callis is Bobby Heenan, God's sake, no, but just doesn't make sense. Like the AEW just needs to do things that make sense, please, for the most part. I'm not going to go hold for hold here, but this was a very, very hard-hitting match. The story was Hobbs' knee, and I thought that was a good story to tell because he's a big powerhouse. At one point, the two guys were on the turnbuckles, and they slipped, and the crowd actually chanted, "Please be careful." I don't think that's a chant I'd want to hear if I was one of the talent. Hobbs' knee brace, he ended up taking the knee brace off because his knee, really selling that knee's swelling up and it's hurting him. This is awesome chants. Eventually to catch the one with, I think it's called a Raging Thunder Bomb. It's hard to tell because when Excalibur announces it, he says like Raging Thunder Bomb. So I think that's what it was. But it's a variation of like a kind of like a Blue Thunder Power Bomb. But to catch the one, again, I guess that's the right move. I just, again, with the booking, having Hobbs come back and go straight to Takeshita, good match, intriguing matchup. However, somebody has to lose, and Hobbs has gone that long. I just feel like he should have been warmed up with a bunch of wins. So I'm not saying don't do this match. I would probably do it on the next pay-per-view when Hobbs is established with a lot more wins, and Takeshita, obviously keep him protected. He hasn't lost much at all. So, okay. So Renee's in the back with Okada. He says Ospreay's his little brother, but you're not on my level, bitch. That was my Okada impression. I hope you guys liked it. All right. So TBS Championship, the champion Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander. So I've said this before, for everything you can say about how cringe Moné's character might be at times and how bad the writing's been and the awful Camille stuff and all that, when she gets in the ring, she can mostly still get the job done. I mean, she, it's not like she can't wrestle. She's had some of the great women matches in recent history, like stuff with Charlotte and stuff she did in NXT. And I thought her first match with Statlander was very good. And so they're having part two. There was a lot of Let's Go Stat CEO back and forth. So the crowd does like her. It's not like she has go away heat because there's a lot of people cheer for her. And she's supposed to be a heel. I thought there was a cool spot where she tried the Meteora and Statlander just caught her and gave her the power bomb. There was a lot of "Let's go Stat." It did get quiet at times when the match would slow down, but so it was, the crowd was kind of at a funny place with this match because they would get quiet at times, but then they really amped up in the big parts. At one point, Mercedes did I want to say it was 5 or 6 amigos, which got a big Eddie chant and applause. There was a package pile driver by Stat to Mercedes with a kick out. I did write that I thought it was going a little too long. I probably would have chopped about 10 minutes off this match. Mercedes did hit the moneymaker on the floor at one point. So this comes up more than once when I talked about the announcing in AEW. Tony Schiavone is asking about the count out rule. He's like, well, if she gets counted out, she's not going to win the belt, right? Or well, he asked. I think he originally asked if she would lose the belt if there's a count out, and like Excalibur had to correct it and say, well, I don't believe there's a stipulation of losing the belt on the count out. I don't know. It was like Tony Schiavone didn't know the rules, and Excalibur had to explain it to him. I don't understand why that's a thing. They love bragging about how, well, we're not as produced as WWE, and it's not as scripted. Maybe you should have a little more of that. Okay? There is happy mediums. So at one point, so Mercedes had Statlander's foot stuck in the rigging under the ring, but I put Mercedes stopping count ? Because why didn't she just leave her stuck there and win the match? And she was saying to the crowd, no, I'm not winning that way. Okay, well, that's a very babyface thing of you, heel, to say I don't want to win in that fashion. So Stat's foot was stuck, and Mercedes kept working on the foot and gave her the Meteora while her foot was stuck on the floor, from the apron to the floor, and that was kind of impressive. And she ended up having to take her boot off to get in the ring. Statlander did. When Statlander got in the ring, she ended up hitting an F5 on Mercedes, and Mercedes kicked out. Mercedes did a power driver to Statlander on the apron, and that did not look good. So it's another not good apron spot. Can somebody talk to the folks in AEW, please? This didn't look good. I thought Statlander might have gotten really hurt. Looked like she didn't, but it was a 9. It was a 9 count, and she made it back into the ring. That's another problem. On one channel, you've got grown men being stretched out from power drivers, and on the other channel, a woman gets power driven on the apron, which actually looks like it really did hurt her, and gets in the ring on the 9 count. Believe it or not, there's some good wrestling here after that, though. Mercedes got the moneymaker submission, and then kind of went into an STF because the ankle, into an ankle lock, and then into the STF. So there was some chain wrestling by Mercedes here on Stat. And when Stat made the rope break, it got a massive pop. There was a fight forever chant, which I disagreed with because I already thought this match was a little too long. Here's the problem, though. There was this weird roll-up finish, and I think one criticism I will have of Mercedes is some of the moves and finishes seem to be a little overcomplicated, and I think the finish was weird, and it kind of spoiled what was a pretty good match. But after the match, Mercedes won. Seemed to give kind of a respectful nod to Statlander as she made her way out. And there was big time applause for Statlander as she made her way out of the ring and up the rampway. Okay, so Continental Classic final, Ospreay versus Okada. So JR joins the desk for the announcing. Ospreay comes out. He's all bandaged up around his head. You can see the blood is kind of soaking through, so they obviously didn't staple him. I think that was done purposely. They didn't give him any glue, nothing. He didn't wash the blood off his face. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. If you want to present this as a quote-unquote realistic sport, then obviously the guy would have gotten cleaned up. He would have got the cut attended to, whatever. There was holy shit chants as soon as they faced off. It was a really quick pace early. Let's go Ospreay, Okada, back and forth chants. I wrote, again, outside too long. Even these two that don't need that. Okada did DDT Ospreay on the outside. And He did the Randy Orton DDT there, where but he did it from the apron to the floor, where the guy's legs, so Ospreay's legs were suspended by the apron, and Okada held on to him and DDT'd him. So he got DDT'd twice on the floor. He got DDT'd on the inside on top of that, and 2 count from a guy who's had his head busted open. So again, the logic, just too much. At this point, Okada's taking the bandages off, and there's that weird fetish where he's like, pretending he's rubbing the blood on himself. I don't know what's going on in AEW with blood. It's just like a bunch of weirdos. Ospreay's knee at one point got caught on the ropes and he fell to the outside. That looked like it hurt. Ospreay hit a cutter on the outside to Okada. And then he hit a cutter on the inside and got a 2 count. Okada tells nobody to move out of the way again before he does the elbow drop. He ended up nailing the Rainmaker, and Ospreay kicked out. That got a huge pop. It got a fight forever. I'm paraphrasing. There was a lot more than this. I'm just going through the main points here. Lot of blood again. Ospreay was just, the cut obviously was still open, just bleeding everywhere. Ospreay. There was a cool sequence here where Ospreay reversed the Rainmaker, hit the Rainmaker, picked up Okada, hit the Stormbreaker, and Okada kicked out. That got a bunch of AEW chants. The match just went back and forth, lots of chain wrestling. Eventually, the Rainmaker connected to Ospreay from Okada, and Okada wins. And Okada is the Continental Champion. He remains with the belt. They put up on the screen he had 5 major tournament wins. He shook Ospreay's hand. He's 9-2 against Ospreay. Christopher Daniels comes out very awkwardly and says, I can't present you with this title because I'm no longer an EVP, but this man is. And Kenny Omega is revealed to the stage opens up like it does for the Young Bucks, and there's Kenny Omega. Kenny chants big time. He's in a suit, and I'm thinking, wow, he must really want to get back at that elite who hospitalized him, right? Well, I'm personally glad to see Kenny Omega back. I'm a Kenny Omega fan, but here's what happened. He calmly walked down with the title. He walked into the ring. He looked at Okada, his arch nemesis, who's part of the group that hospitalized him. He calmly handed him the belt, and he calmly walked back out of the ring and back up the rampway. While he was in the crowd, the ring, the crowd was saying, holy shit. I was more like, holy shit, is he really just leaving? and that's what he did. So, again, the devil's in the details. AEW, there's a lot of times there's a good idea in there somewhere. There's a nugget of a good thing. What was the point of this? Like, Kenny Omega to just calmly show up and slowly hand somebody a belt and walk away. And I know they're going to try to sell us on, well, he was acting in his capacity as the EVP. Who cares? This dude was just hospitalized. This guy's part of the group that did it. Wouldn't you want to kill him? So again, I'm a Kenny Omega fan. This isn't me shitting on Kenny Omega, but I don't get the logic of all this. And then his first match back is going to be in Japan, not AEW. I thought Tony Khan was the one paying him millions of dollars. And I thought maybe that would be big enough that would warrant being on AEW. I don't know. I don't want to go on a whole tangent about Kenny Omega and all this, but that was frustrating to me. Okay, so let's get into the 4-way for the AEW Championship. These matches are usually a mess, especially in AEW. And again, I'm not trying to pick on AEW. It's just going to be a lot more of fighting in the crowd and just bad spots and I don't necessarily dislike all these guys. Like I said, I'm a fan of Hangman, and especially his character, I think, has been kind of revitalized. This new, outlaw, badass loner, he's more interesting than he was for sure. I think Jay White's a good wrestler. I think he's horribly miscast, though, as a good guy. I've had enough of Orange Cassidy, and I will give Moxley credit. I didn't make a note of his build. For all the criticisms of his body the last couple of years, he looks great. I'm not exactly the biggest Moxley fan, but I just want to give some credit where it's due. I will say that I should probably mention that this was Moxley the champion versus Jay White versus Hangman Page versus Orange Cassidy, for anyone who didn't know. Big cowboy shit chants on Hangman's entrance. And the match started off with all the faces arguing, and Mox just kind of rolled out and was like, whatever, screw you guys. At that point, Orange Cassidy dived on him, and then the faces got their wits about him and attacked Moxley. And then the Death Riders took Mox out. And again, Shivani didn't know the rules again. He was asking about something about, will they get disqualified, or will can they win the championship this way? I don't. He was asking something. He didn't know what the rules were again. And I was like, are you serious, bro? Like, the second match, you don't know the rules? Aren't you one of the lead announcers? So the Death Riders, so the faces attack Mox. The Death Riders come out and save, now they're starting to like save Moxley. So this devolves into like almost like a 4-on-4 match. They fight into the crowd like we knew they would. One good thing though is that the security did come and take the Death Riders out and take them out of the arena, and basically got in their way, forced them out of the arena. The officials were there, so I like that part, because I hate when it's just lazy and they just say, well, there's no DQ, so there's nothing we can do. Well, I mean, can't you still do something to, hold up the integrity of the match? I mean, you do have security, right? You do have officials. I mean, no DQ, okay, if one guy hits another with a chair in the match, that's one thing, but to just say it's a free-for-all, and don't get me wrong, WWE's guilty of this too, a la the Bloodline and whatever, that, well, there's just no disqualification, so 4 guys can beat up 1, But anyway, so, yeah, they did good there. Security got rid of the Death Riders for the time being. Put an asterisk there. The faces put Mox to an announce table, and we later found out busted open the back of his head the hard way, because you could see it later when he got back in the ring. Christian's watching up from his suite, and then the camera pans over, and Hook is watching Christian from his suite. So I don't understand the point of that, but I guess the story is supposed to be, if Christian tries to cash in, Hook's going to spoil it. I put that Mox was making some very cartoonish faces with his selling on the outside of the ring when they would show him. And it's possible that maybe he was knocked a little loopy for real, because, like I said, he was bleeding out of the back of his head. Swerve's house chants were directed at Hangman. Swerve wasn't even in the match. He did a good job of getting pissed off at that and, kind of selling that was bothering him. Mox and Hangman ended up exchanging. Mox and Hangman had an exchange, and while that was going on in the ring, there was a lot of cowboy shit chants. At this point, Orange Cassidy and Jay White were on the outside taking out somehow, because they did a lot of that in this match where it's like these 2 guys are going to do something, so the other 2 guys are knocked out. At one point, Cassidy landed the orange punch on Mox and went to pin him, but Page pulled out the ref, and then he hit the buckshot lariat on Orange Cassidy, and then he hit it on Jay White, who ran in, and then the Deadite of Mox. And then Yuta stopped the buckshot lariat so Wheeler Yuta makes his way back out after the security kicked out the Death Riders. I guess it didn't stick. But Page ended up kicking Yuta off and still hit Moxley with the buckshot lariat. Orange Cassidy stopped the count this time. And then Jay White ran in, Blade Runner to Orange Cassidy. And then Yuta hit the ref after Jay White went for the pin. Yuta hit the ref. Big F-U Yuta chants. And then at one point, Marina Shafir runs back in, and she goes to grab Jay White from behind, and he did the Blade Runner to her very, smooth and quick, so to the point where so the announcers were trying to get over the fact that he didn't know. He just reached back and Blade Runnered someone. He didn't know it was Shafir. That got a huge pop from the crowd because, like I said, she's just been beating the shit out of all the men, and they can't really touch her. So that was a good way to get around that. In the middle of all this confusion, Wheeler Yuta came back in, hit the big knee on Jay White, and Moxley pinned White. So Moxley retains the title. After that, Claudio got the chair for Jay White. The other Hangman and Orange Cassidy was still laid out. And FTR's music hit. And you could just feel the crowd kind of just go mild, because I know they were like, okay, this can't be it, right? The end of the pay-per-view can't just be that FTR is coming out to save. No disrespect to those guys, but like that's especially the way they've been booked. It's like, well, you could tell the crowd and even me at home, I knew like this cannot be the ending. It can't be FTR's coming up. And then they just awkwardly stopped about halfway down the rampway. And then the lights went out. You heard, "You think you know me? Here comes Adam Copeland." That was the big surprise. The crowd did get hot for Copeland. There was a brawl. So all three of them go in the ring. They brawl with the Death Riders. Big holy shit chants. Copeland and Mox face off at one point because, again, everybody cleared out. They went back and forth. He hit a spear. Copeland did the submission hold he does. And I guess now he's done it to all Shield members, former Shield members, where he breaks off the piece of the chair and he puts it in the guy's mouth. So he did that to Moxley, where he had like kind of the killer crossface, but the little post there from the chair in Moxley's mouth as he did it. Claudio ended up pulling Mox out of the ring and saving him. Copeland grabs the mic. He calls Mox a kid. And he says, "Rated FTR is here and we're taking it all," whatever that means. And he challenges him to a trios match on Dynamite on the simulcast. The mother of all simulcasts, they're calling it. So they used the end of the pay-per-view for an angle leading into the big simulcast this Wednesday coming up, when Dynamite for the first time will be simulcast on TBS and Max. And I guess Collision will be doing the same thing moving forward. So big things for both companies. AEW just got the big TV rights deal, 5 years. They're going to be simulcast on Max now. Pay-per-views at a reduced rate. We know that WWE is going to Raw going to Netflix with Raw. So, hey, good time to be a wrestling fan. We're eating good. But that was my review of AEW for the week. I will say this about the World's End pay-per-view. I thought it was a lot of really good wrestling on the show. And with AEW, they just need a little more polish. There was just some details that kept this from being a great pay-per-view. I thought it was a good pay-per-view. I would even say a really good pay-per-view. In terms of just the wrestling, really good. Just some minor things I don't like about spots and guys, like just the spots on the outside and outside too long and way too much blood. Everybody's bleeding. Like, again, if the story was Ospreay, just stick with that one guy. And I don't want to go back down that rabbit hole. My point is, I didn't agree with all the booking decisions here, but I thought this was all in all a solid pay-per-view by AEW. Adam Copeland coming back is good. They do need some more star power. Kenny Omega is really good. So, I think AEW's got some momentum going into the new year. And I people listen to me like, look, I'm not rooting against them. It's the opposite. I'm rooting for them. I criticize them because I want them to get better. I lived through the years when WWE was the only big dog. Those years sucked. Okay? So I want AEW to do well. So anyway, that's my review for the week in AEW. It was a little lengthy. There was a lot to cover. But I will be back as I record this. It is not yet New Year's, but Christmas has already gone by. That's why I was a little delayed. Happy holidays to all of you. Thank you if you've listened this far. And please give us a like and subscribe. And I will be back for more wrestling coming soon. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.